in a souvenir shop, in a vegetable and meat wet market, in a boardroom, over the phone. Negotiations are happening everywhere, every day. One's ability to successfully negotiate is a crucial skill to have. About a month ago, in Kellogg Global Network Week, we had participated in a course entitled Negotiation Strategies. Hi, my name is Arjun Chaudhary and welcome to Mission Happiness. The focus of that course was on business negotiations. I'll be sharing with you some of the key terms that we had learned in the course and be sharing with you some sort of a checklist of factors that you need to be aware of before going into a negotiation and during the negotiation process. Now, before defining these key terms in the world of negotiation, I'll be taking the perspective of a seller. So let's say, for example, 10 years ago I had purchased my current home for a price of $500,000. Now 10 years later, because of market conditions, my home is worth $1.5 million. Now because of the current demand for houses in the market, I'm willing to lower the selling price of my home from $1.5 million to $1 million. Now let's define the terms. Term number one, target or aspiration point. Because my home is worth $1.5 million now, ideally I would like to target or sell my home at that particular price. So therefore $1.5 million is my target or aspiration point. Term number two is reservation point or walkaway point. This is essentially the lowest possible price you're willing to sell your home at, and anything lower than that you'll just walk away and not make a deal. So essentially in our case, because I was willing to lower the selling price of my house from $1.5 million to $1 million, $1 million is essentially my reservation point. Anything lower than that I'll not accept. And third and final term is a term called BATNA, B-A-T-N-A, which is essentially the best alternative arrangement that you have should your current deals and negotiations not go forward. So in my case, for example, it's essentially a good backup plan. So in my case, a good backup plan would be is that my relative is willing to purchase my home for $900,000. Now, even though this $900,000 is less than my reservation price of $1 million, it's still a good backup plan, because essentially I'm still making money in that deal, because I had purchased my home 10 years ago for $500,000 and my relative is giving me $900,000. So still it's a good backup plan. But generally the rule is that once you know what your BATNA is, you generally not tend to engage yourselves in conversations or new sort of buyers when you think that the conversation is going to end up in such a scenario where the offer is going to be less than your BATNA. So let's say, for example, I am exploring new buyers to buy my home. I already know my BATNA is $900,000. I will not engage in conversation with potential buyers who I feel will take the deal to such a situation where they'll be willing to offer me something less than $900,000. So there you have it, some of the key terms in the world of negotiation. Now, one thing is important in negotiation, it's all about practice, practice, practice. It is highly recommended that before actually going into the negotiation, you have mock negotiations with your internal team and prepare yourself for the actual negotiation. Now, let me provide you some sort of a checklist of factors that you need to be aware of before the negotiation process and during the negotiation process. So before the negotiation, you should know what your BATNA is, what your reservation price is, what your target and aspiration point is. You should also try to research your opponent party's BATNA. Now, negotiation is something that's always done better face-to-face in person rather than a virtual platform. Never go to a negotiation by yourself. Always have at least one member from your team go into a negotiation setting. Next is try to see that the opponent who you're negotiating with, are they coming from a different culture or country? Are there certain negotiation cultural norms that you have to be aware of? Research those norms and abide by them during the negotiation process. And lastly, the location where the negotiation is happening. So let's say the negotiation is happening in your home turf or boardroom of your company. Are you able to change the setup of the room, the chairs, the tables, the positioning of the presentation to your advantage? Something just to be mindful of. Now, those are some of the factors to be aware of before the negotiation. Now, during the negotiation, these are the factors that you need to be aware of. Don't ever reveal your BATNA to your opponent during the negotiation. Before the negotiation starts, set certain norms and rules of how the negotiation is going to take place with the opponent. Then identify through discussion with your opponent as to what sort of components are important to them in the negotiation? What are components that are important to you? Rank them, prioritize them, and lead your conversations and address them accordingly. Then very carefully present your first offer in the negotiation. So whatever quantity offer that you're presenting, or whoever's presenting, should be very careful, because that first numerical value will essentially determine what your final offer or deal is going to be. So be very careful in that regard. Always present precise offers rather than rounded numbers, because it shows that you've done your research. The next thing to be aware of, it's highly recommended during negotiation that you give a large number of small concessions to your opponent rather than a small number of large concessions. So for example, let's say you're trying to sell your house, right? Instead of saying that, hey, I'll include these two big ticket items, which is going to cost me a lot, but I'll just throw that in. Don't try and avoid that. Instead say that, okay, I'll throw a bunch of these small ticket items which are a low cost to me. So for example, I'll throw in a microwave or another small appliance. Don't throw like really expensive, high cost, big appliance items to you. The other thing is that always have somebody during the negotiation process recording all the offers and the counter offers. And lastly, whatever the final agreement is, of course, have that in writing. But I guess overall, the overall arching theme that I want to sort of share through this video is that be brave enough to walk away from any offer that is below your reservation point. Remember, happiness is the key to success. I'm Arjun Chaudhary.